Right, this is a 3-biscuit guide, 58 keys, 3-biscuit guide to Journal, Apple's new free diary app for iPhone. 3-biscuit guides, they're always one video with everything there is to know about an app or a writing service or sometimes a device, everything that I can find out anyway. And they're always detailed enough and therefore long enough that you need provisions, hence the biscuits. But in this case, something different. Because the new journal is solely on the iPhone, I rather suspect that you just want to know this thing about how to use it with a Mac. So, before I even say, hello, I'm William Gallagher and this is 58 Keys, let's do exactly that. Starting though with how this is a workaround, and it barely qualifies for that word, but it does work and I do use it. First, write your diary entry, your journal post, whatever you want to call it, on your Mac, or actually indeed on your iPad, and then select it all, copy it, and turn to your iPhone. Open up Journal. Start a new entry, press and hold for just a moment, then lift your finger, and when you see this pop up, choose Paste. Done. Apple calls this the universal clipboard, but you and I don't think we call it anything at all. This is just simply what happens when you have an iPhone and a Mac or an iPad, when you have, well, any combination of 2 or more of those devices. Copy anything on one of them, turn and paste it on the other. There are actually ways to stop that working, but as long as you haven't fiddled and all of those devices are signed in, they're all yours, so they're signed in with your Apple ID and maybe they're all on the same Wi-Fi network, well then it just works. Copy and paste. There are also reasons to not use this workaround and to write on the Mac, but oh come on, let me have something, let me hold back something to keep you watching. Hello, I'm William Gallagher and this is 58 Keys, which as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads, and I suppose actually particularly today the iPhone, and actually I suppose particularly especially today the iPhone and its new journal app. Do subscribe or support 58 Keys on Patreon because there is always so much to talk about and possibly to write in our diaries. Now that Journal is finally available to everyone with the latest iOS 17.2 update for iPhones, it is time for a proper 3-biscuit guide to it all. There actually isn't a lot to this app, not yet anyway, but there's enough that you can miss things. There's enough that you can be left wondering why it isn't doing what you expect. So, okay, in a moment, and you and I will just rattle through creating a regular, normal journal entry about our day, and then go through choosing what Apple offers us as suggestions that we might use for that journal entry, and then some settings that can speed up how you use Journal at all. And I think that's actually important because, I mean, it's nice to be able to take your time, but it's also good to be able to have a thought and jot it down as you rush off somewhere. But before that, you and I need to quickly cover why using a workaround with a Mac is not the best idea. I mean, all right, it's frankly, it's a rubbish idea, isn't it? But I use it a lot, and doubtlessly I'm going to keep using it until Apple brings Journal out for the Mac or maybe just for the iPad. And then also talk about there are key and important things that you cannot do with Journal, things you cannot do that you would maybe expect and probably hope that you could. But first, let's get it out of the way, that workaround, the good and bad. The good stuff, I mean, don't get me wrong, you do this copy and paste thing and it works. I wouldn't tell you if it didn't. If it ever doesn't work, by the way, one of those devices you're copying and pasting from is on another Apple ID, it's someone else's, or maybe it's on another Wi-Fi network. Maybe you've disabled this universal clipboard, or maybe your company has. Fastest way to check all of that out is just by trying it. Copy and paste between devices. If it doesn't work, then on your iPhone or iPad, go to Settings, General, AirPlay and Handoff, and look at the Handoff option. It should be turned on. So if it isn't and you didn't have a reason to turn off, turn it back on. Over on the Mac, it's a very similar thing, but in this case it's in System Settings. Allow handoff between this Mac and your iCloud devices. Make sure it's ticked on. Ticked on makes me think of ticked off, and I've read articles of people who are really ticked off about this. Actually, articles came in, this is a disastrous failing. Copy from one, paste to another. Apple, end of the world type stuff. Apple is complicit in some stealing of your privacy between your two, I don't know, whatever. Presumably, some of the people complaining about this genuinely believe it, and Maybe they can find a reason, I don't know. But others, I think they're just looking for your clicks and your taps. And yeah, besides, anyway, if Android ever gets around to copying this feature, all of these complaints will vanish for some reason. For you and me, right now, Universal Clipboard is just the way it should be. And you saw me hesitate there. I've now said the words Universal Clipboard quite a few times, and I expect you've noticed. But until you and I started talking today, I hadn't thought those words in years. I mean, if actually ever, because this is just right. I've copied something here, I want to paste it there, so I do. But I don't know why this is the case, but at least at the moment it is. You can only copy text from one device and paste it into Journal. Copy and paste anything you like between the Mac, the iPhone and the iPad, but when you go to paste it into Journal, it will not do anything at all unless it's only text. So there you go, there's a limitation of the workaround right there. Then once the text is in, though, you can actually use Journal's own controls to add in photos, though. So as long as the image you want is on your iPhone, then you can work around the workaround. Only there's this nice entry there in Journal on your iPhone, this nice entry that you tapped on your Mac. It's still on your Mac. Journal is private, it's locked, it's protected behind a Face ID unless you tell it not to be. And actually, I suppose your Mac is as well. I mean, behind a password or Touch ID. But even so, you're leaving a private, personal journal entry behind on your Mac. So I think at least I'm probably going to suggest that rather than copy and pasting, you cut and paste. So select all, then Command X instead of Command C. I'm being overcautious there. But back to the iPhone. Now that you've got your pasted text in there and you've added some photos if you like, you do not have anything else that Journal could suggest to you if you were writing an entry there from scratch. As you'll see, if you haven't already, before you start an entry from scratch, you open up Journal, you go to type a new entry, you are offered suggestions such as photographs you took today, map locations of where you took the photographs, and all sorts of things. When you're already in the entry, you've gone past that suggestion stage, but you can tap this button at the bottom to get the suggestions back again. So yeah, back and forth, copy. Yeah, the workaround does work. And as I say, I keep using it just because, I mean, the one benefit is it's easier to type on the Mac than it is on the iPhone. But it is a bit limited, all of this. And you may end up having to keep adding and editing to any post. Next then, what you can't do that you would expect, or at least hope, maybe assume that you could with Journal, and you're going to be disappointed. It's only disappointing for a second. It's only going to take a second because actually there are several points like this, but in each case, well, the answer is nope, you can't do that. Maybe you will be able to in the future. Maybe. For instance, you cannot import entries into Journal from any other app. So if you're a day one user, not my favourite app at all. I don't know with Day One. I don't know if you can tell Day One to export a copy of some or all of your diary entries, but you then definitely can't import them into Journal. As yet, anyway, and I suspect, as ever, there isn't and there will not be a way to move everything over from one diary app to Journal. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But the reason I suspect that this bit won't ever happen is that, with one little exception to do with dates, Apple's Journal is aimed at recording what you've done now, what you've done today. It isn't about being able to look back 10 years. Well, not yet. It will be in 10 years' time. If Journal was built for looking back through hundreds or thousands of entries imported from a previous diary app, well, then its search wouldn't be so rubbish, would it? Yes, rant calm. You can also see a logic to Apple's reasoning here that Journal is about now and about today, because its strength, the standout feature of Journal is how it helps you document the now, the today, by prompting you with things like the photos from today, the map locations, things like that. But there is also the opposite issue. You cannot export from Journal. There's no way to find, you don't like Journal and say, oh, nuts to this, I'm going to another app and taking my entries with me. If you put them in Journal, they stay in Journal. You can delete them, you can copy each one out and stuff, but there's nothing you can do to move them all over somewhere else, at least not at present. I hope that will change, but no breaths are being held. And lastly, for this bit about what you can't do, you cannot get retrospective suggestions. I mean, you can't start an entry for today, the default, and then change its date to 5 years ago and now expect to see photographs from then, podcasts you listened to then, workouts you did back then. I mean, that'd be amazing. And I know people are looking for it, but it can't be done. So given all of this, I mean, it's very easy to say Journal is limited, and even to say that Apple is actively preventing you from obvious options like the importing and the exporting. And I so hope that there will eventually be a version of Journal for the Mac and the iPad, letting you add journal entries on whichever device you like, whichever, and have them all go. I worry that there won't be, because, well, certainly the Mac doesn't seem set up to know what podcast you listen to on your iPhone today. And since Apple Fitness Plus is still not on the Mac, well, it's not going to have workout data either. But surely the iPad will get Journal, whatever. Anyway, even with the physical limitation of it currently being solely on the iPhone and the software limitations of the features and what it can't do, still, I genuinely think Journal is good, I think. I like Journal, and it has prompted me to record some things that I know I would have forgotten, especially since I had already forgotten them, until Journal prompted me to think back a couple of hours. How fast does the memory go? So, with all of the bad, or at least the weak stuff in Journal, with all of that out of the way, here is how to start an entry in Journal. I know you've seen the plus sign, you can figure this out, but there are subtly different ways to do this. They have subtly different benefits, and despite what I just said about us being done with the weak stuff, yeah, there's still one more little weakness to come. Actually, let me get that weakness out of the way too. Just get these things done. You cannot start a journal entry using shortcuts, for example. So you can't have Journal automatically record what time you came home and add in the weather and photo. You can't have Journal automatically include any emails that you sent, which you would think shortcuts would let you do. You can't swipe down to get Control Center and begin a journal entry in that. There is no Control Center button for Journal. What you can do, while you're in some other app on your iPhone, you can share the app or the information you're looking at. You can share it right into a journal entry. So if you're in Apple Music, for example, and you're looking at the page for an artist, well, you can send and you can share that page into Journal. Or if you like, you could share a specific song, a specific track from Apple Music right into Journal, or from the Apple Podcast app, or from anything on your iPhone that includes the share feature. Only it's one share, one entry. It is not possible in Journal to share that artist page and your favourite track of theirs, plus that podcast interview episode they were on. You can't save all of that into one journal entry. Instead, each bit goes into its own separate journal post. And I suppose you could copy and paste with it, but yeah, at least it all goes in there. You share to Journal, and you're in a journal post, and whatever you're sharing, and you have the ability to then write about it. I like the artist because I saw this art. Yeah. That's still much faster than the regular way of starting a journal entry, or at least the default regular way of starting a journal entry. To start a journal entry from scratch, none of this sharing, no copying, pasting, no workarounds. You open the Journal app, you gurn for the camera and the Face ID, and when it lets you in, well, you always see your most recent entries plus a big plus button. Well, not quite true. If you had been editing a post when you last put the phone down, it will wake up at the same spot so you can carry on. But in general, if you're in here to write something new, you pick it up, you tap the plus sign, away off you go. Right at the very top of the screen that appears now, there's a cancel button, in case you change your mind, and below that there is a nice new entry button. If you just press that new entry button, you get a mostly blank page for you to start writing in whatever you like. But instead of tapping on new entry, you can instead scroll down and see some suggestions, and perhaps even quite a lot of them. During the beta test, a few months while I was using this before it was publicly released, this took a long time to build up, from no suggestions to loads of them about photos and all these things being displayed. Over time, as you use Journal, the suggestions appear they get better. The list seems to grow longer, or maybe it was a bug and you'll get a ton of them right now. What I guarantee to get, though, is a set of text prompts. For instance, who is the most creative person you know? Write about their creativity. Or What is the one thing you appreciate most about yourself? It's a bit Hallmark card Christmas special like, isn't it? But actually, it was that kind of thing that did get me to remember something good that I'd forgotten. Somebody had something really nice. I was very pleased, and then I wiped it and recorded it later. If not immediately, right, then after a few short weeks, you do build up these more suggestions that aren't just the writing prompts. So you will always get the prompts. You should get more later. So here then is where you are going to see images, collections of images, audio, maps, podcast recordings, workers, all kinds of things. These are all things that you have used your iPhone for, and this is the killer feature of Journal. It's so deep wired into the iPhone that it can take all of this stuff that you've used your phone for today and offer it to you as visual suggestions for your journal. Even though there's a whole lot of them, you can only choose one suggestion. And then whenever you tap on one of the suggestions, it's as if you've also tapped new entry in that. You tap it and boom, you're straight in, starting a journal entry with that image, that text prompt or whatever. That suggestion thing that always goes at the top. And if it's a collection of images, they all go up to the top together. Whether it's an image, a text writing prompt, or something shared from another app, well, you can just leave them there when you're done, or write your piece and then delete them if you like. Deleting them from Journal does not delete anything from your camera roll or your podcast app or anything like that, so I just leave them, but you can do what you need. So, suggestion or no suggestion, images or no text or text, whatever. Once you get into writing a journal post, you are presented chiefly with this almost blank screen. The cursor is tapping its toes, ready for you to get writing. And there's this row of options just above the keyboard. Over on the far left there, that's the Siri Suggestions button. Tap that and, as I say, you're shown all the same things you saw on the way in and possibly ignored. Next to that is the Photos tool, which you can go in to positively choose one or many or lots of images from your camera roll, many or lots. Fine difference there, William. If that's not enough to fill out your journal entry, then the next button, the middle one of the 5 across the top of the keyboard, that's the camera app. Use that to take new photos live into your journal. Next up, second from the right now, looking that way, that's a button for recording audio. Record any audio you like, and while you're doing that, while you're recording, you see this line graph waveform kind of thing moving. Finish saying or recording whatever you like, and then at the top of your journal entry will be that audio. Just add to the list though of things Journal won't do that you might expect. There is no way within Journal to take that audio and have it automatically transcribed. None. Which is surprising, because when Apple first announced Journal in June 2023 at its WWDC conference, it was also at many points in that same presentation showing off audio transcription through voicemail calls, messages, and all these sort of things. I don't know why, what dot has not been joined here. Anyway, last button, furthest one to the far right, is to do with location. Where are you now? Where were you then? And where will you be tomorrow? It's getting philosophical now. Look it all up, add it to your journal post with a tap if you want to. Then, when you are done writing or adding suggestions or anything like that, well, you've still got the cancel button, but you do also have an ellipses icon. Tap that to get the options entry date, which is ticked by default, followed by custom date or trash. Tap the custom date and you can have this, you can change the date of this entry to whenever you like. This isn't the thing where you can put it back 5 years and hope something happens. It's really just for how you were too exhausted to write about yesterday before you went to bed, and instead you need to catch up. Once an entry is done to your satisfaction, tap done. The entry goes back into the list of them all there. So there's the entry plus its date, and again an icon, an ellipses icon. Tap on that and now you get the options to edit, bookmark or delete. I think you can possibly see through the mystery that is edit or delete, but bookmark, that's interesting. Well, a bit. To bookmark an entry, you tap it to bookmark an entry that you like and that you want to come back to later. The moment you tap bookmark, well, you do bookmark the post, but it also closes. If you tap the ellipses again, you'll now see remove bookmark. The point of this bookmarking thing, right, is to help with Journal's entirely inadequate rubbish search feature. It isn't a search feature. You cannot type in a word you remember from an entry and see all the matching posts listed. Why not? The only thing you can do is tap this filter icon towards the top right, then tap to choose one of these possible options. And you can see bookmark is one of them, but there's also photos, places, more. Show me all entries with photos in. You can only choose one at a time, and when you pick, Journal presents all of the matching entries. It actually makes it look as if those are the only ones you have in the entire diary. I mean, I suppose it does what it says it does, filters posts, so you can find all the ones with location details in it, but still, you can only find the one you want by looking through all the ones being shown to you. There is one more thing about starting a new journal entry, and this makes me think that Apple sees Journal as an app for reflection rather than something you'll be adding to in quick succession as you run around and think something to. Because by default, to start a blank new journal entry on your iPhone, you have to open the Journal app, gurn for the camera until Face ID lets you in, then you tap the plus sign, then you tap new entry, and finally you can write. That is a lot of tapping. And I mean, it's not exactly arduous, but it's easily enough to make you think, yeah, whatever, I'll do it later, kind of thing. We're writers, you and I. I don't think that we know from writing later. It just doesn't happen. However, if you want, you can cut out a bit of that tapping for it. You can have it so that at least as soon as you tap the plus sign, you get the blank new entry and you can start writing immediately. So that's, well, at least one tap. I thought it was going to be more. It feels like more. It feels faster. If this is what you want, you set it up by going to Settings, Journal, and scrolling down to the heading New Entry. Turn on Skip Journaling Suggestions. There are other options in settings that, well, actually you don't need to know them in order to write your journal, but you may want to know at some point where knowing what it is might actually help you figure out what Journal is doing to you. The first few settings really, they're all to do with privacy, aren't they? So, Journal offers to include the latest workout you did in your new diary entry, or where you are, or the music you listened to. Actually, the first time you ever open Journal, it will go through all of these, asking your permission for each of them. And I don't see why you won't just say yes to all of it. It's your phone, it's private, but you can later, though, just go back to Settings, Journal, and turn any or all on or off as you need. Truly can't see an advantage to turning off the suggestions, but you can. I do see an advantage to one other setting though, Lock Journal. I'm not sure why. Am I still being hyper cautious? Because Journal is an iPhone app and your iPhone already needs Face ID before it will even open it, but I like this. Right at the bottom there is Save to Photos, by the way, which means if you do find a way to paste an image or you take a shot, Journal will automatically save a copy to your camera app's photo roll. That's obviously a good thing. Maybe I'm just too relaxed overall. I can't see a reason not to say yes to that. Yeah, and forget it. Last though, for this section of settings, there is also Journaling Schedule. Leave this on. This is really good. This is what lets Journal give you a nudge to write in it in the morning and the evening. Like I say, we're writers, We need the occasional nudge. And by tapping on, it's quite a faint forward arrow next to the journaling schedule on switch, you go into a new section where you can actually decide what days and what times you want to be nudged about getting to write in your journal. That's the thing though, if you don't ever write in your journal app, even being nudged, well, it's a bit worthless, really. And actually, even when you do write, it's just that at the moment, it's not going to be a thrilling read, not until you're a year into it and you're now looking back, if you can filter enough and scroll down enough to read. Here we go. But then it will be great. Okay, hopefully actually also by then, by a year from now, Apple will have updated Journal. They'll have done something. There is a lot that could do with updating, but even the search, all of it can wait. I suggest, if Apple is please working on releasing a Mac or even solely an iPad version. Type with crossed fingers on your iPhone for a year. But for now, that's it for this 58 Keys 3 Biscuit Guide to Journal. Thank you very much for watching. Now take care of yourself. And journaling actually is a way to do that. It helps. Write more as well. And I'll see you soon.